Hi, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Plymouth. I am your host and your town manager, Derek Brindisi. On this episode, we have two special guests, Selectman Harry Helm and our CAL Director, Michelle Bratti. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for
having us.
Before I begin, I always start just trying to let the folks know the purpose of these segments. Mm-hmm. And as Selectman Helm knows, there's always a lot of misinformation out there. So I use this 30 minutes, try for 30 minutes once a week to try to give folks an update of what happened at our select board meeting the previous night and try to correct any of that misinformation. But today we don't have any misinformation to correct. Today we're going to focus more on everything that's going on up at the CAL, so the Center for Active Living. But in particular, what I want to talk about is the Senior Task Force. And so I know, again, I've been here a little over a year now, and I was introduced to the Senior Task Force last spring, and there's a lot of energy, a lot of great ideas, a lot of thoughts. Selectman Helm, could you kind of describe how the Senior Task Force came together and kind of where it's headed?
Okie dokie. Well, like a lot of really great things that end up happening, it started really small. It started with a conversation between Michelle and I in her office. Before that, concern appeared in my mind at select board meetings when I would hear requests from our senior citizens for reduced prices for like beach stickers or dump stickers.
Sure.
And I realized in listening and analyzing, looking at it, that this was a tip of an iceberg, a huge iceberg for our elders in this community. So I sat down with Michelle in her office and we started a conversation where I mentioned this about the financial aspects, and Michelle educated me on what the iceberg looked like. Okay, and the iceberg's enormous. And I'll let Michelle speak a little bit about it, but really our intention coming out of that conversation was to really create a Plymouth where our elders could stay in a changing community, as we are changing with house values, taxes, etc. How do we make sure that our elders stay? Because they're such an important component of our culture, of our local Plymouth culture. So, Michelle.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great conversation with Selectman Helm, and as he indicated, it was the tip of the iceberg. We really wanted to create a sustainable blueprint. Sure, we have issues and there are certain specific issues, but we really wanted to take, Plymouth is awesome. How do we, 55 and plus, 40% of our population is 55 plus. There are 18 at least, and still being built, 55 plus communities.
Wow.
So how do we afford, literally and figuratively, to make a great environment that our seniors can age in place, stay if they choose, and make sure their needs are met? Also make sure that they are seen as leaders in their community. So how do we become great at this? And we wanted to be a model for other communities in doing this really well. So the Senior Task Force was created. Great, incredible array of people.
Can you just touch on the diversity of the task force? I know Karen Keene, our health director, sits on it.
Yes.
I know folks from the hospital sit on it. So can you just talk about the composition a little bit?
Sure. Selectman Helm is our liaison. I'm the chair.
Okay.
We have Joanne Moore, who is actually the director of the Duxbury COA, lives in Plymouth.
Okay.
So she's, on it and is very helpful. We have Captain Kevin Manuel, so we have some, emergency personnel responders. We have business people, Amy Naples. Director of the Chamber of Commerce. Kevin Hood, who's well known in our town for really a very giving individual, but a great businessman. We also have, as you mentioned, BID. We have Sarah Cloud, who's the clinical director there, and Karen Peterson, who is the marketing and media specialist there. We have
some state officials, right?
We have who else is? We have so many diverse, a lot of people
Betsy-
in
is
the
Betsy
industry.
Connell still on it?
So Betsy Connell is the executive director of the Massachusetts Councils on Aging, and she is on it absolutely.
Betsy and I worked together in Worcester for a long time, so she's
Yeah.
great in that
She's
sphere.
amazing. Nicole Long, executive director of Old Colony Elder Services.
So a very diverse group
Very
focused
diverse
on
group.
seniors. And I'm trying to do the math in my head. So when you said 40% of the population, we're about 60, 65,000. So we're talking about like 25,000 people that live in town, thereabouts,
You got it.
are 55 and older.
You got
You know,
it.
So large population.
That
Yes.
population, they are not just in these 55 plus communities.
No.
They were already here. They've been here for decades.
Right.
Their families have been here for a really long time. And, so it isn't just people coming into town now that make this up. It's our residents who have been here for their lifetime.
Sure.
And the story that you touched upon, Selectman Helm, about our seniors not having the financial ability to continue to live in the places maybe they raised their family or they grew up themselves, is a story that's been told across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So
Sure.
this is a conversation we were having in my last community, and I know that they were thinking about ways that they could help their seniors. And we'll try to get to it at the end of the segment, but the selectmen as a body, the select board, have tried to put measures in place in order to help the seniors. So we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. But what I wanted to kind of drill down on what the task force is specifically doing around this notion about being an age and dementia friendly community. Can someone touch upon that, what that really means?
Well, just really quickly, and then you can touch upon what that really means.
Sure.
Just to give you some background, when Michelle and I, the second meeting that we had in her office, we basically created a list of all the people that we wanted to be on this task force to create a super powerful task force. Not just people who were going to come to the Cal and talk about it, but people who were professionals in it and were concerned about it on the local level and involved in the local level. So it was really created as a task force to investigate that iceberg. Okay, and we divided up into subcommittees.
Okay.
And investigating the aspects of that iceberg, we came to a conclusion. And the conclusion is what Michelle's going to talk about now.
Oh,
It's
okay.
almost like we
Interesting
planned this,
backstory.
but this is great.
It's a good
It's a
transition.
great segue. Thank you. We determined we were looking at transportation, we were looking at housing, we were looking at communication issues, of course, financial issues. And lo and behold, we realized that all of these kind of tenets, all of these issues and subjects dovetailed completely with an age and dementia friendly designation. And that is a true designation that is endorsed by the World Health Organization.
The federal government.
The federal government. It started in Washington, D.C., and it is a designation that is given by the State House to communities that deem themselves age and dementia friendly and have gone through the proper channels. We are actually in process. We were lucky enough at Fall Town Meeting to have funding approved for us to do this needs assessment, which is a critical part and is a requirement to become age and dementia friendly. So if we become age and dementia friendly, we can, one, it opens up funding opportunities for the town of Plymouth. Two, it really allows our work to continue in the senior task force to give us different avenues to pursue to help all ages in our community, whether it's grandparents raising grandchildren, whether it's sidewalks, streets, playgrounds, things that just make it easier
Right.
for our seniors and families to age in place.
Yeah, and one of the great things about the needs assessment, besides it is a essential component to the age and dementia, creating the age and dementia friendly designation, which opens up Plymouth to grant monies for these items. It has caused this group, I mean, it's a great group of people. I mean, it's like one of the most amazing group of people I've ever been involved with, to really look at what is going on in this town with our seniors. And really, we are working with an organization for the needs assessment. They've probably never seen a group like ours before. They are probably so tired of, well, we don't like that question. We want to find out this,
Right.
and we want to find out that. And this needs assessment is going to give us a really, really good idea of not what we think is going on with our seniors and our elders, but what is actually going on.
Sure. So a couple of things. You mentioned, Michelle, about the needs assessment and the town meeting had funded it. Is it also true, though, we had received a donation from the hospital in order to help fund the needs assessment?
We did. So grateful. BID contributed $10,000. They made a donation towards this. And again, 2 members from BID are on this task force, and we were so grateful for their contribution to this so important project.
Yeah, so very appreciative of the support of
Yes.
BID, both monetarily and in-kind donations by having the staff attend these
Absolutely.
meetings. So appreciate
Right.
their support.
Yeah.
But now rolling into the needs assessment, so Selectman Helm, you touched on it. So what are we driving at? What are the types of questions? I know there's a survey that's going out. What are we trying to ascertain with this types of needs assessment? What are the questions we're asking, and who are we asking? That's the other question, because I don't think it's everyone in town, right? It's a very focused group of individuals we want this information from.
Right.
Well, it is a focus group but it's open to all residents.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
because part of the needs assessment for our seniors does involve other generations.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, we all interact with each other. We all live with each other. Okay, it's one community. I mean, Plymouth is very interesting. I've always felt that we were a lot like, in a way, like our own island. Okay, we are more like Cape Cod, for instance, on the other side of the canal, than we are like Weymouth, or like Duxbury, or like our neighbors. We are a very solid community. So it's open to all people to respond.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
think about this. No matter your age, at some point in your life, you're going to be a caregiver,
Right.
or you're being cared for. So when you think of aging in a natural process or dementia, there are such an informal families care for family members, and they're doing it every day, and we don't even see it, and we don't recognize how important it is for services and that community. If you live in a supportive community, no matter what you're going through or what your age is, as you're aging, then you don't want to leave. You want to stay.
Yeah. So, for instance, there's a concept in all of this called aging in place. Okay, that's obviously, from what we told you about the history of this group, extremely important to what we're doing. So there are a lot of questions that involve our residents telling us how they're aging in place or how they can't age in place. What, for instance, transportation.
Right.
Okay. As our 55 plus group ages, more and more of them will be unable to drive. How are they transporting themselves? So we want to hear from the people who have gotten to the point where they depend upon other transportation, and how's that working for them, and those who are approaching it, those who may be providing it. I don't think, it's not jumping the gun to say that we don't have a really good transportation system in this town. I don't think it's jumping the gun. I think everybody realizes that. So there are questions around that. Can you think of any other?
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up, just to touch on Selectman Helm's point about transportation and that being a major challenge. When I left 5 years ago to be as the assistant town manager, I would always tell stories when I went back home about my time in Plymouth. And one thing I had always said about Plymouth, why it was so complex and complicated, just because it's sheer size and the geography, but when you look at the issues that we face, we now collectively as a team face, we have urban issues, right? North Plymouth, downtown, we have suburban issues, we have a lot of rural issues.
Yes.
So transportation is certainly a major challenge, but when I worked in the city of Worcester, we had one issue, those are urban issues. So it's from a government service standpoint, it's very difficult to try to provide services when you're faced with all these different diverse challenges. So I can see transportation is rising to the top as one of the challenges.
Yeah, it is one of the challenges for our seniors.
It definitely is. And I think, again, taking the concept of this survey being available to all residents, there was 5,000 surveys mailed to random residents 55 plus.
Okay.
So they have those, and we have a really good return rate right now so far.
Yeah, we do.
That survey is out there, and there's a QR code. They're available at the Cal in print, but we want anyone 18 plus to take it because they can give a perspective. To your point, it's not one. We're not one dimensional.
Right.
We want to hear from things, transportation, but we want to hear about safety. How do you feel? Do you feel safe in this town? What do you think the resources are in this town? One of the big tenets is communication.
Right.
And I know you have attended a senior task force meeting, and you were even part of this needs assessment as government.
Right.
Were a key informant. And how are seniors and others communicating with our government, with each other? What's available in the town? What's the business sector doing? So it really dovetails everything.
So again, just to recap for the folks at home, so our goal for the senior task force is to become an age and dementia friendly community.
Yes.
We're in the process of gathering information to inform our collective vision. So right now we're doing a survey to gather. That's one component of gathering information.
Yes.
And there are other components. When we were backstage.
Yeah.
We were talking
Hair
about
and makeup. Yeah.
we were talking about other processes or strategies you're putting in place to try to gather
Sure.
information. Can you touch upon those a little bit?
Yeah. So it should be noted that UMass Boston Gerontology Institute is the agency that is doing the needs assessment, and they are well known in the field, very reputable for doing these across Massachusetts. But the next step, we did some key informant interviews again, where I know, Derek, thank you, you were part of that. The government was part of that, some business. We had the Cal. So we had key positions in town and throughout the community that spoke one-on-one with UMass. We moved to the survey. That's in process right now. Next step is the community forums. And that is where UMass is going to kind of look at the community at large, invite community members. We have 4 forums coming up, 2 in May, 2 in June. The first one is May 17th, and that is going to be at South Middle School in the evening at 6 p.m. We want to make this very versatile and easy for all community residents to come out. Bottom line, we want to hear from you.
Right.
You live in this community. If you're 18 or 80, we want to hear from you. So that's May 17th in the evening. The next community forum will be held on May 31st at the Town Hall in the Great Hall, and that will be at 1 p.m. And that is a hybrid model. So you can come down in person, or you can Zoom in and
Great
be
idea.
part of this. The third one is in June 6th. And that is a complete Zoom. So if you work, it's at 7 p.m. We'll give people a Zoom link. We'll have people register. So if you work and you're interested in again, having a voice in your community, you're able to kind of join and interact with that. And the final one is June 14th at the Plymouth Public Library at 3 p.m. And that is an in-person one as well.
So that's all in person.
Yeah.
So that's another, I think the third strategy in trying to gather information.
Yes.
If I could, because I don't know this question to the answer, is when are you closing the gathering information? And before you answer that, the reason I say this is because I've been a part of community health needs assessments in the past, and in Worcester in particular, Worcester is known for a lot of cultural events in the summer, right? What do we do in Plymouth? We do a lot of summer events where people gather. And so one of our strategies when I worked in Worcester 10 years ago was that we actually took the information to the people versus having them come to us. So I was just interested when you were going to close the capturing of data, because there may be other opportunities during the various summer events that are taking
Sure.
place that we could gather information.
I think, so twofold, great question. I think the community forums, I know it's to present some of the preliminary data findings from those surveys. So people can hear hey, we're getting a sense that these are some hot topics. What are we asking? Again, what Harry said, what is important to Plymouth residents? We don't want to assume that transportation is something important to everyone. We want to hear from you. So some of this preliminary data will be given. In order to become Age and Dementia Friendly designation, we are looking to close in the summer, at least with UMass Boston.
Okay.
But that's just the, no pun intended with it's the tip of the iceberg. It's the start of a process.
It's the start of a process.
Yeah.
And it's taking that information and developing a plan, okay, the multi-phases of the plan, okay, then it's implementing them, and it may be in random order, but one of the groups that we have identified, the task force has identified, as while they are not residents, okay, are visitors, are tourists.
Yes.
Okay, the visitors to our town who are 55 plus, okay, because they have a major ramification on our economy and on life here during the summer. So there is that conscious understanding that we do need to garner information in some way from them.
Good. So we are, and that was my concern, that maybe we don't want to capture data from the summer events because it's in large part tourism, right? Driven by tourism. But it sounds like that is something that you're paying close attention to.
Well, when tourism is the largest part of your economy, you should be concerned about getting that input and that aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because this concept, and stop me if we're going over time, this goes down to the level of the design of park benches.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah,
the
that's
current
a good point.
current park benches, the ones we all think of, that we're all thinking of in our mind right now, are one long bench.
Yep.
An Age and Dementia Friendly, for both our residents and our tourists, has a bar in the middle, so they can get up easily.
Use two hands.
With two hands. So it's, I mean, it goes to a really, really fine level. Okay, it isn't just about what governmental programs need to be put in place.
Right.
It goes down to some pretty low detail.
So is that the end game? So you gather this data, and then you're going to analyze this data, and that's going to inform future decision making, whether it's transportation, health, care access, tourism. Is that the whole genesis of this project?
Just real quickly, then you can give your opinion on that. What will happen is that we'll look at transportation, for instance, okay, and we will, with the needs assessment, have a really good idea of what it needs to be. And that will be part of it is what we don't have. Okay, where do we go in this area? Okay, what do we need to put in place? And that is one of the importance. We could do this on our own, and we could not get the Age and Dementia Friendly designation, opening us up to grant funding, because there are some big issues. Transportation is going to be one of the biggest.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
Look at basic things, to Harry's point, a park bench. There's no end game in the sense that you constantly want to evolve and keep your finger on the pulse of what your community needs. The demographics may change. It may become a more populated senior community, less, etc. Think of a purple table concept. Look at dementia. You want to educate your businesses, your residents, your town employees, government. Purple table concept is simple. You want to call up East Bay Grill, you want to call up Cork and Table, I'm naming a few Plymouth restaurants off the top of my head. You have a loved one that has dementia, you want to go out to dinner because it's nice to do so. We live in a beautiful town. You call them and say, I'd like to make a reservation at the Purple Table. Those restaurateurs who are involved in their community and invested in dementia say, no problem, we'll see you at 8. It's not a literal purple table, but it's a table that they know needs to be a little bit away from noise, a little bit away from the crowds. that the wait staff
Understands.
Right.
and that family has an amazing experience. Little tiny things like that don't cost a lot. The training is free. That's offered by the state. We can offer that to businesses, government, and think about the impact of
Yeah.
someone living here and saying, I really love the town I live in.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
So if I
Yeah,
were
that's
if I were
great.
to encapsulate kind of what we agree and we're trying for, okay, is it is really popular right now in my time in government, in my 10 years in government, to say, when encountering a problem, what is Weymouth doing? What is Hanover doing? What are all of these other towns? In 10 years, we, at least in this issue, would like people, if not throughout the country, to say, what did Plymouth do?
Right.
We want to stop looking at what other people are doing and do the most amazing thing for our community that we possibly can, so that people come back and say, you know what, we need to look how did Plymouth do it?
No, I'm happy you said that. I actually had that conversation this morning with our climate resiliency planner, and I've had that conversation with our fire chief and police chief, that we expect other municipalities to call us to say, how did you guys handle that issue? How did you guys handle that issue? So, and I asked Mark Rail today, I said, is the state calling us and saying, how are you guys dealing with climate resiliency? Because of the programs that he's already put together in his short year. So we all have that collective vision that we want to be a front runner. We want to be a leader in this work. So we have about a minute and a half left. And so I appreciate everything that you guys are doing in this front, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it, and we'll have you both back on in maybe 6 months from now and talk about the findings of this.
Sure.
But I just wanted to bring up, and I talked about this in the beginning of the show, that the select board as a whole, I mean, this is one of the goals. This Age and Dementia Friendly is what was identified through the senior task force, rose up to the level to make it on the goals for the select board. But the select board in the fall had passed through town meeting the ability on the tax bill now where you can donate to seniors in need.
Yes.
We have just completed a project, an agreement with our retiree association that we're going to be building a program so active employees can donate into like a medical emergency fund for our senior retiree population. So the point of bringing this up is that this issue of the senior population, I think, is front and center on the minds of our select board, and they're paying close attention to everything that's happening in trying to address those needs. So thank you, Selectman Helm, for being a leader on that front, and look forward to more to come. So again, I want to thank you both for coming this afternoon, and we'll talk more in the future. And if folks want to learn more about this project, please go to the town website at www.plymouth-ma.gov. Starting next week, we have a new website, so please go to the new website just to surf it and check it out. But you'll learn more about the Senior Task Force and everything that's going on with this Age and Dementia Friendly community process. So thanks again, and we'll see you all next week.